We want to turn your attention to a country getting a lot of attention here at the APEC Summit, Mexico. We'll have an interview with President Peña Nieto later in the show, but first a fiscal reality check. Mexico has the second largest economy in Latin America, but at the moment it's not doing so well. With growth projections expected to be at only 1% this year and severe floods in the south taking a toll on the government budget, Mexico is headed for one of the weakest economic performances in years. While the north of Mexico is bringing in lots of foreign investment for production of goods to the U.S. market, everything from aerospace parts to medical supplies, the rest of the nation hasn't been doing as well. We thought we'd take a look at two different businesses and compare their durability in the current global marketplace. Correspondent John Holman reports for us from Mexico City on a tale of two industries.
For Mexico, global trade has long meant a short hop over the border. 3/4 of the country's exports go to the US. And for years, Mexico's biggest competitor in that market has been China. It's often caused friction. But as both countries look around for other trading options, they're becoming something more than rivals.
China is looking for new regional partners in Latin America. Brazil and Mexico are, I think, the two leaders in the region.
Now China is second only to the US as a destination for Mexican goods.
We have had a great deal of growth between trade and investment between Asia and Mexico in the last 10, 15 years. Trade, for instance, has grown 800% between Mexico, for instance, and China.
The relationship between the two countries is a work in progress. They're torn between competition and the gains they can make by working together. The first step in preparing the quintessential Mexican drink, tequila. It sells even more abroad than at home. Now it's gearing up for a new market. The best quality tequilas, those made 100% from the agave plant, have been allowed into China after a lengthy ban. Mexico's top exporter of fine tequila, Patron, is already getting in on the game.
Actually, for Patron, we expect that China can be our second biggest market after the United States. This is talking about next 5 years. We will expect to have at least 2,000 cases sent to China in the next years. And that, at the end, for us, is more jobs, more people.
Tequila is benefiting from a goodwill gesture from the Chinese government. This year, it's also lifted a restriction on Mexican pork. The measures will have little impact on the economic balance between the two nations, but the message they send is clear.
Mexico has been fighting for 5 years in the case of pork, 3 years in the case of tequila. It's an important signal. It shows a willingness from the Chinese part to change.
Music to the ears of President Enrique Peña Nieto. He and the Mexican government see China not just as a lucrative market, but as a gateway to a continent where Mexico has little trading presence.
China is the relevant power in Asia, in Eastern Asia, and definitely we need to increase ties with China so that we can have better access, better communication with the economies that are expanding and growing and opening up in Asia itself.
Asian companies are already using Mexico as a vital link to the North American market. In factories like this one, parts from China are assembled and then exported to the US. The country's leaders have been taking pains to develop their strategic partnership, even getting it blessed by a Mexican shaman. But it's a partnership that's far from equal. Mexico's biggest exports to China are raw materials like minerals and oil. They generate about 10 times less income than the mainly processed products coming the other way. That's led to a number of Mexican industries being swamped by the influx of Chinese goods. The western city of León is the capital of Mexico's shoe production. The streets here are lined with shops selling every kind of footwear, but the industry is struggling. It's been deeply affected by cheaper Chinese imports.
Cerran talleres, están cerrados, muchos.
Antonio Canales has made shoes in León all his life. His business is just about surviving, but many of his neighbors' workshops have gone under, unable to compete.
From 49, there's just 15 running.
His grandsons are learning their trade in his workshop, but he worries that if he keeps losing out to Chinese imports, there will be nothing for him to hand on.
The Chinese shoes are about 50% cheaper than the ones here. What it costs us just for the material is what they sell the finished shoe for. We're still missing the glue, the sole, the labor. We're right on the edge here.
The country's textiles and electronic industries are also affected. Rodrigo Contreras says the Mexican and Chinese governments are working on the problem, but no concrete course of action has been agreed.
The shoe industry is an industry that is important to Mexico. Definitely, we have been working with the Chinese government to balance out the dumping, per se, of bad quality products into the market.
The Mexican government is trying to help other industries follow tequila into the Chinese market, but it's still very much the junior partner. And as the relationship between the two countries continues to ferment, it is yet unclear if they can successfully balance competition and cooperation.